An Alphonso Davies goal, and a Toronto FC youngster makes a monumental move abroad. Plus, just when you thought things couldn't get any better for Kyle Larin in La Liga, well, it's time for another edition of Keeping Up with the Canadians. Happy birthday, Atiba Hutchinson. The Canadian men's national team legend turns 40 today, and what a storied career he has had. 637 appearances for club, 100 appearances for country, captained Canada at a World Cup, and still more to come? We'll see. But from one Canadian legend to another, Alphonso Davies is back. The Canadian superstar had 1 goal and 1 assist this past week, bringing his goal contribution total to 7 this season for Bayern Munich. Some were concerned how the newly acquired João Cancelo would affect Davies' playing time at Bayern, but that doesn't seem to be an issue, at least for now. To MLS, where Toronto FC homegrown youngster Jayden Nelson is Europe-bound. The 2019 Canadian Youth International of the Year has joined Rosenborg, one of the biggest clubs in Norway, a move that Room 442 has been all over. An incredibly skilled player, Nelson played over 2,000 minutes for TFC in all competitions last season, and at age 20, he becomes the youngest player ever sold abroad by Toronto FC. And I swear, we likely won't mention Kyle Larin every single week on this segment, but when he's playing like this, how can you not? The Brampton, Ontario native made his second appearance for Real Valladolid off the bench this past weekend, and guess what? He scored the winner against third-place Real Sociedad, helping Valladolid move up the table 4 points clear of relegation. Larin became the first player to score in each of his 2 matches for Valladolid, and he already has more goals in La Liga than his 9 games for Club Bruges.
Back-to-back game winners for Kyle Larin. Like Sarah would say, he's doing bits in Spain. Michael Singh, Sarah Pararia. Mikey, a great piece there. Kyle Larin, where does he rank in terms of most impactful January signings? Look at that smile.
He is the most impactful January signing so far this window. I mean, he's played what? A total of 45 minutes. He's made 2 appearances, 2 game winners. How do you get more impactful than what Kyle Larin has done so far? Maybe you guys have other examples, but in terms of impact, immediate impact, especially when you consider what it means to Real Valladolid, what it means for their season. They were in a relegation zone when Kyle Larin joined them. Now they're 4 points clear. They're 13th in the table. There's now breathing room between them and the relegation zone. It means so much. We know how much it means for a club to stay up in La Liga.
Sarah, from 19th place to 13th place, thanks to Kyle Larin's goals. Impact. That's the definition of impact.
Absolutely, but let's remember, like Mikey said, there is only 4 points separating them from 18th place Cadiz.
Right.
That is not a lot. La Liga is tight.
But what it would be without Larin?
Who knows? Who's to say? Theoretical question. I'm not saying he's done great, but I also think we have to remember that they had no one scoring goals for them. That's why it's been great. They were relying on Sergio Leon, 34-year-old Betis legend. You know, great player, but you know, of a certain age. They also only scored before Kyle Larin 13 goals all season.
You're making my argument for
You're
me.
kind of making the case for Kyle Larin.
2 goals
I'm not
Valladolid has scored. 2 goals by Kyle Larin.
I have to give Kyle Larin some love for sure. But most impactful.
Yeah, give me your most impactful.
Luisito El Pistolero Suarez. 4 games, 4 goals. Gremio now going to the Brasileiro Serie A. And not only scoring goals, scoring stunning goals. This guy, at his age, is magic still, and he's been way more impactful.
But was he a free agent?
In my opinion.
He wasn't a January transfer. It was before January.
Yeah, I guess he slid in. He slid in and just...
Well, the season has
don't think
been
it's
just
Kyle
started. Yeah,
Larin.
mine was, we did a show on who should be or who we think is the most impactful January signing. I said Geronimo Rulli going over to Ajax. I forgot one man, though, who's been incredible, and he's Canadian. Alistair Johnson. He goes to Celtic, plays every game so far, 90 minutes, hasn't lost. First 2 weeks, 2 teams of the week.
Team of the week, yeah.
I mean, this is in terms of impact, he's done just that at Celtic. The first match of his career at Celtic against Rangers in a massive derby, and he's done well. So I got to go with Alistair Johnson here.
I love that shout. Alistair Johnson has been unbelievable. He stepped in. It was made for him, right? That type of football that screamed Alistair Johnson. just the question is, like, Celtics are already an unbelievably good squad. Like, what's the replacement level when it comes to Alistair Johnson? If they don't have Alistair Johnson, are they still going to be a really good team? That's why I think impact is just the difference that someone has made on a squad.
I do think Laren has, been really great so far in his 2 games, right? He scored, and I get that he's jumped those 4 points up for Valladolid, but I'd like to see how this continues because he's only there until the end of June, so we'll just see basically until...
They have an obligation to buy, though.
Yeah.
So
maybe he can stay in La Liga, but also if Valladolid goes down, then I'm not so sure what are they going to do. Yeah. But I'm still... It's 2 games in. I'd like to see him really come into his own and also play some teams like Valladolid beat Sociedad without him in the fall, even though Sociedad's a great team. They kind of have their number. They have some big games coming up, and I'm curious to see how he does against, because, Valencia...
They still have Barcelona. They still have Real Madrid.
Bilbao. I want to see Mallorca.
Yeah.
I want to see Real Madrid. I want to see all these teams, and then I want to see how he goes up against them, because maybe they're going to keep doing what they're doing with him. Bring him in 75th, 80th minute. All they need is a tap and make it happen.
Yeah, and what's the key for Kyle Laren, right, with this loan? Find minutes, find goals. And he's doing that just now. I mean, he has more goals already than he had at Club Brugge. 2 goals to the 1. Let's move on to Toronto FC. Jayden Nelson. Looks like he's going to Rosenborg, Mikey.
Yeah, so the deal was finalized today, so he is making the move over to Norway. Rosenborg, one of the biggest clubs in Norway. So for him, it's a dream move for him, right? This is a guy who, since I first interviewed, his very first interview at Toronto FC, I did with him, and he was telling me his dream is to one day go play overseas in Europe. Now, again, he gets that big move, a lot of history at that club, and a lot's going to be asked of him at that club. The sporting director has already come out and said this is a guy that's going to sell tickets because of the way that he plays. He's fast, he's speedy, he's a great dribbler. He's going to draw fans in. I think that's what sort of we saw at Toronto FC. So yeah, it's a big step, a big change in his life, but you got to be happy for the kid who's becomes the youngest player ever sold by Toronto FC overseas. So now there's that blueprint for the club.
Big moment in someone's life today. Atiba Hutchinson turns 40 years old. And Mikey, I have your rundown up here. Will Atiba Hutchinson retire after the season? Before I go to you, I want to go to Sarah. Do you think he should retire? I mean, who are we to tell a player when to retire? But at 40 years old, based on what you've seen of him recently, do you think it's time to hang it up?
I'm very much one of those people where I think it's better to go before it gets bad. And we were uncertain with Atiba during the World Cup, and then turns out he had a really good World Cup, especially for his age. Why not let that memory be the memory that we have instead of running it out and dragging it on? I think it's, like you said, who are we to say? But I would rather go before it gets bad.
Do you mean running out and dragging it on with Canada? Or just his
in general, are you just going to become a bench player that's not seeing the pitch at all and just kind of being remembered as this older guy? Are we going to remember the Atiba Hutchinson that we just also saw from the World Cup, who was this, amazing captain no one will ever forget? I think it's better to go out on your own terms than kind of being forced out. So I think you're also 40. I don't think it's bad at all. No one would be mad at this.
And Mikey, over the past 5 or 6 seasons, bar this past season, he's played made at least 25 appearances.
Yeah.
So there's still something in his legs. I mean, what we saw at the World Cup was a player come in, start in the midfield for Canada off of an injury and limited playing time. So he should have something to offer still, you would think.
Yeah, and unfortunately, so far this season at Besiktas, since he's come back for the World Cup, his minutes have been extremely limited. Only a handful of minutes off the bench, a handful of appearances off the bench. And like you said, he is getting up there in age 40. I think he's in his last year of his contract with Besiktas, which obviously expires in June. So I wonder, and I know there was interest from Toronto FC's side. Atiba Hutchinson, Brampton, Ontario. I wonder if there was ever been interest from his part. Listen, Michael Bradley needs a supplement there at holding midfield. If Atiba Hutchinson's willing to come home, and maybe it's a place that he's wanted to play at some point in his career, because we know other guys like Junior Hoylett and whatnot have wanted to come over here and play, why not potentially go have that as your swan song? Play at home in your own backyard for a team that's likely going to be competitive this year. Your minutes are going to be somewhat managed, but it'll obviously be a step down from where Turkey is. I think that's a good way to send off your career.
Do you think Toronto FC can actually make that work?
Yeah, absolutely, because I don't think Atiba Hutchinson's in it for money anymore, right? And there won't be a transfer fee. And when you come halfway through the year, your salary cap hit is only halfway. So if he comes in June, I do think there's a way that you can kind of send him off on sort of the high note, and he'd be a great addition to this team.
Atiba Hutchinson to Toronto FC, instant fan favorite. Mikey Singh broke it here first. Just joking. This has been Keeping Up with the Canadians, thanks to our main man, Michael Singh.